Well, you join me today to run through one of my favoured bottom bait presentations. It's a rig I've been using most of this year since the launch of our new CVR rigger range hooks, and it's a rig that I'm going to continue to use, especially approaching the autumn. We're just coming up to the end of the summer now, and as I move into the autumn, generally that's when I start to use a lot more boilie in my fishing, and that's when this bottom bait rig comes really effective. So the rig itself, it's really simple and easy to tie, but it's super effective. I've been using this year on my venue that I've chosen to target, and it's actually landed me fish to over 53 pounds. And the hook holds that I've had on all of the fish that I've caught with this setup have been absolutely incredible. About an inch back, dead centre of the bottom lip, and really nailed. The hooks have been difficult to get out at times. Today, for the purpose of this rig, I've used a barbless hook because of the venue that we're fishing on whilst doing some filming. However, normally I'm using a micro barb hook whilst fishing on my chosen venue. It's really simple, as I said. It's using a single 18mm hardened hook bait, trying to match the hatch with the free offerings that I'm putting out into the pond. You know, quite often people fish with a blatant pop-up whilst over a big area of bait. But to me, on venues that I'm fishing where the carp are very old, very wise and very big quite often, I find they shy away from those sort of presentations. So I've been going over to a single bottom bait. Quite often it picks out the bigger fish as well and picks up some of those more wary fish. It's really simple, and all I've done is trap the hair in place with a small section of XT silicone tubing, and that's then going to act almost like a blowback once it's picked up by a fish. I've got a small section of the coated 25-pound ultra skin that's actually stripped below the eye, and that's to create a small extra pivot next to the hook there. There's a small piece of critical mass putty in the middle of the rig to help pin it down once it's out in the pond. And where I'm using the ultra skin stiff coupled with an anti-tangle sleeve over the quick lock swivel, it's going to ensure that when I cast out, quite often I'm fishing at range, it's going to help with the weight of the bait on the hair to kick away from the lead and make sure that everything is sat down straight, flush to the bottom and away from any harm where the fish might be able to see it or feel it whilst they're feeding on the bottom. As I say, it's caught me a lot of fish this year, and it's really effective, and I would highly recommend it for anyone that's looking for a bottom bait rig moving into the autumn, into what I would associate as big fish fishing season. On to actually how to tie it now. It couldn't really get any simpler. We're going to start with around about 10 inches of the ultra skin stiff. We're going to firstly strip off around 3 or 4 inches of the coating, and that's going to allow us to form the section where the bait's going to go, and then the small strip back area below the eye once we've tied the actual hook on. Onto that, we're then going to take a small loop and form that on the end and finish that off to actually add the hair stop and fix the boilie into place once the rig's tied. Once that loop's in place, I actually like to then put the bait onto the hair itself. A lot of people will just guess, and then you end up with sort of a big gap or a small gap where the bait's sat too tight to the hook. There's no point in doing that. You may as well pop a bait on. It makes it much more controlled, and you're able to get all your rigs absolutely perfect whilst tying them. So once the bait's on the hair, we're then going to fix it in place with a bait stop and take a small section of the XT silicone tube and thread around 3mm of that down onto the braided material and finish it just below the boilie. Once we've done that, we're going to take one of the super sharp size 6 or size 4, normally I would use, rigger CVR range hooks. These are lethally sharp out of the packet, and they're fast becoming my firm favourite hook to use for most presentations that I'm fishing with these days. Once we've got the hook, we're going to firstly thread it through the piece of XT silicone tubing and fix it into place opposite where the barb would be. If you imagine on this barbless hook where the barb would be, that piece of tubing's fixed in place bang opposite. Once we've done that, we're going to fix the hook in place just with a simple knotless knot, around about 7 whippings back up the shank of the hook before taking it back through towards the point. Then it's just a simple case of finishing the rig off by sliding an anti-tangle sleeve onto it and finishing it off with a simple double overhand loop knot. Once we've done that, the rig is finished, all bar that simple blob of putty that we're going to put in the middle just to help pin everything down and camouflage it once it's out in the pond. As I say, it's a really simple rig, but sometimes the simple rigs are the effective ones, and it's certainly been doing the goods for me this year, and hopefully it will do the same for you.